Hello and welcome to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And I'm kind of wanting to talk about psychic and magical attack, and because it's a continuous thing. Um, if you maybe I've been clear, and I've also been very unclear in my videos, so my teaching style is a little different now. And yes, I'm obfuscating a little bit of stuff for if I'm going to hand out keys, then maybe you'll have to be able to move through the complicated labyrinth to get those keys a little bit. So the mind must learn, and in its struggle and learning, it then is the ground is ready to have the seed planted. So that's the process. If you don't get some of this material or any of my material, it's because we need to till that soil, we need to aerate it, you know, or however we're going to work with the microbiome of the soil for you. But let's go into it. There's this ongoing saga in my life of, I'm going to call them crazy women who either think they have magical powers and can manipulate people with their energy and intention, or others on the receiving end that believe they're being magically and psychically manipulated by other people, lovers, men, haters, like whoever it is, who knows. And 9 times out of 10, literally, that 9 times out of 10, that's like at least 90% of the time, the person who believes they're under attack has been unconsciously starting the problem in the first place. Being an outsider, being a third person, having a different perspective, it's kind of easier to assess the situation and look at it analytically, constructively, uh, with no real attachment. It doesn't matter. I'm not looking for the truth. I'm not looking for right or wrong. I'm looking for like the method to the madness. And I would say everyone who seems to have a weakness in their aura, in their energy structure, in their mind, a receptivity, I think has been a loving, sensitive, well wishing type of person that we might classify as an empath. However, no boundaries. Seems like water signs get into the most trouble and are most prone to play in dark magic. Those watery depths go deep. And I would consider anytime you're manipulating somebody else, having an energetic, emotional, mental power struggle, you're playing with black magic because you're interfering with someone's natural tendency to play on the playground of life, bump their knees, make mistakes, and learn their lessons. So there's probably a morality judgment going on. Hey, that's not fair that you're beating up my friend, or or that's not fair that you're offending me because you don't believe what I believe. However, and so then we want to retaliate. We want to equal the power scale. We make it about us. The ego, the so-called villainous ego, gets offended, wants to balance the scales. So a sense of justice, a sense of gaining back that power and feeling power loss. Um, so it's really weird how victims are the biggest bullies. And in their retaliation, in their, you know, feeling like they need to overcompensate, I'm going to retaliate slash dish it out 3 times harder to teach you a lesson to leave me alone because your little scratch, your little interference seems so big to me. So, under the influence of water signs, things get magnified, they get exaggerated. And this is where the illusion and delusional comes in. So, our equilibrium, we're going to have to assume, is clean and clear and sane. I'm interacting with life in a clear way. And then it starts getting more delusional the more subjective it is. And what's really interesting, a lot of modern magic is subjective. It's internal. It's a inner process of psychology, meeting the archetypes, playing with the forces. It's a very internal process. So I truly believe water signs and water aspects, fourth house placement, uh, definitely would be prone to having to deal with that. Water signs having to deal with it. And so we now need to ground it out and air it out, and shine some light on it. And we're looking for a sense of ethics and a sense of morality, and it can only be based on where you're at. So a deity's sense of morality is way different than a human's. Okay? So and I would assume, for me, it's respect. Because if everything has to do with being offended, if everyone's ego is so hyper insensitive, we should say also inflated, inflamed, then respect is the one thing I always go back to. Am I respecting them for wherever they're at in their evolution? Am I respecting myself for where I'm at? Do I respect my own thoughts and feelings? So if you're an overgiver, chances are you're breaking boundaries all the time. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, so I throw that out there. But let's move on. So with the client who has been seeing me frequently, off and on, under this false sense of friendship, she works at the New Age store filled with rocks, What's your problem? There's a rock for that. What's your problem? There's a crystal for that. Any color, any shape, any price, You would think, out of all the people in the universe, the person who's not going to be influenced in a magical and psychic way would be the New Ager, the mystic working at New Age retail. Contrary, you'd also think someone who would be pretty well versed in been able to handle all this would be a guru, of a shaman, someone wielding the powers of the universe. Contrary to popular belief, it seems like they're the ones who have the most difficulty with these boundaries. And I'm just going to say self-importance. Getting caught in our own illusions. So, this video, my client texts me and she's like, hey, let's go get coffee and talk about this situation. I'm like, honey, if you're truly under a magical attack, you could die. So I'm like, you haven't done anything. What is your philosophy on life? What is your purpose? How did you construct your reality? A few months back, you talked about how you're into kind of like the law of attraction and you were liking Neville Goddard. I'm like, are you full of shit? I After you told me that, I clicked on some videos. I've been watching his videos every day for the last few months and watched his lecture, like heard his lectures that are put out on audio. And I learned so much about Neville Goddard and his philosophy of I am consciousness, and imagination is your mind in action, and you're creating at the highest level to materialize that which you wish and live in the end, basically select the vibration. And I'm like, oh, the father of New Age law of attraction is Neville Goddard, and everything after him, whether channeled or otherwise, falls short of his work. Like, I'm now very impressed with this person. It's been a great deep dive, and it expanded my horizons. I'm like, why are you having any problems? Aren't you following the rules as laid out by Neville, which is live in the end? That would be you feeling free, not even having to put up psychic protection because you're in a vibrational state where you have succeeded and you have basically reality warped. So reality warping isn't new. Neville Goddard has been doing it before the Scarlet Witch has been doing it. I'm like, come on, honey. So she hasn't been practicing. So in my mind, she's not taking serious the laws that govern the universe that you subscribe to. So moving this all back, I've kind of like laid it out a little bit, kind of talked about psychology and being triggered. A lot of people who have magical or psychic attack or feel vulnerable energetically have had some form of abuse in their past, usually in childhood. Whatever happened to you in the past is recorded at that level of awareness. So if it happened when you were 5, the way you perceive the situation, the way you wrote the story in your mind, and the way you emotionally connected with it is of that 5-year-old. Move forward in time, you guys are now 30 and 40 and 50 years old. And every time you get triggered, those emotions and that level of understanding is still at a 5-year-old level. So you think you're being bullied, you think you're being attacked. So why do we have the present moment? Why do we even have the future? It is to reconcile. It is to bring that content up, and it's always from the past, and square it with the present moment. Your 45-year-old brain or 35 or 25-year-old brain should now be viewing life differently. Oh, gay rights are a thing now. You can get a job now and be gay. It's okay to wear pink. Great. Welcome to 2022. You know, this is not 1990, you know, or in the 80s. So your present moment is your best friend. The issues going on in your present situation is to help you clear that. So a little self-reflection, a little looking under the rug, a little honesty. It doesn't have to be deep. You don't have to sit in a chair in group therapy, you know. You can just be going, wow, for some reason I really just want to hit that person. The tone of their voice, or their name, or their face. Oh, it reminds me of the people who abused me in some form as I wrote the story of my life, you know. So basically, well, I don't know how far we can get into this, but so that's that. When we kind of talked about water signs a little bit, I was hinting at boundaries. Water, by its very nature, has a tendency to seep into things, go through cracks. Water type people want to experience emotional intimacy, connection, and they on a psychic, empathic level. So they feel safe when they feel connected. So this is another reason why they're more prone to this type of stuff, is because in order to have an attack or a connection and an understanding, you have to have like a tie. You have to know that person on some level. So they have to skinny dip in your subconscious, or you have to skinny dip in their subconscious. It's a community pull. Sometimes you need to, kick everyone out, clean the pool. So that's what going hermit mode is all about. Get everyone out of your swimming pool, clean it, put in fresh water, and then invite only and make them pay. So your mind is a sanctuary. So that's kind of what the boundaries is. And so boundaries goes with the law of the circle. If you can't erect personal boundaries, this is like a psychological thing. If you truly had your personal boundaries in your mind, in your emotional body, then people could be doing whatever the fuck they want, pardon my language, and you wouldn't get offended. So the fact that you're getting offended is telling me you can't even put up a psychic boundary. So a good example is Harry Potter. Voldemort was always able to infiltrate his mind, with occlumency and all that stuff. And Snape was really trying to show him, dude, you're so clueless. Magic 101 is learning to vault your mind. If you can't erect boundaries of your mind and have that be a pure, clean space, how can you do magic? Real magic, honestly. So boundaries and purity go together. So I would definitely think throat chakra is the big issue right there, because the throat chakra has a lot to do with creation and control, and is basically the bridge from the mind to the heart to the mind. So this isn't new knowledge. Sorry, Joe Dispenza. You're not the prophet here. This knowledge has been out forever. Buddhist monks, throat chakra, the chakra system, purity. But anyways, that was just a little playful right there. I actually definitely have studied and do the work of Joe Dispenza. So isn't this interesting? Here I am, pretty powerful and self-claimed very powerful in the magical world. And what am I doing? Self-help. I learned about Neville Goddard and his Christian language, and I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from Joe Dispenza and his scientific language. And so I'm embracing people that don't even have the same belief system or practice as me. But if it makes me a better person, if it expands my awareness, if it makes me better in society as a human being, I'm open to it. So the benefits of being open. Okay. So we're talking about these boundaries. Took a little detour. Slightly kind of related. When you can ground, when you can center, when you can chill, the dust settles, the water gets clear and clean, you have a clear mind, you have a Zen mind. So the art of being and practicing being present and practice being in your body and anchoring to this dimension and world is how you develop strong boundaries that strengthen your emotional body, that strengthen your mind. So, literally, I have to work on boundaries every day, 3 or 4 times a day. I have to work on grounding and centering all day long. I'm so open. So, if you're working with magic and empathic stuff and healing arts, you're wide open. Everything is hitting you. You're basically a hoe of the world. Everything has a welcome in sign, you know? And so you have to learn to flip the sign closed. You're not operational 24 hours. You have to be realistic. You're going to burn yourself out. And how to recover is, once again, ground, center, be with yourself, be alone. A lot of the people who seem to be under a magical and psychic attack are not alone. So, fearing the dark is one thing, but I'd almost say being alone is the true dark. Like, people are so afraid to be alone. And so what we do is we comfort ourselves with our memories, with our thoughts, with our feelings, with our stories. You're using them as a blanket. You're using them to entertain yourself in the aloneness. And so until you can really enjoy being alone, not with your thoughts, or eventually without your thoughts and without your feelings, God, who am I, right? Without all the projections on the mirror, then you come into your sense of being. And so it's a clearing and cleaning out process. And you eventually learn not to own it, not to identify with your thoughts, your feelings, your inspirations, your downloads, your channeling. Wasn't that what you were all doing anyways? Becoming clear and clean and being a channel. So I'm not trying to call you out on it, but we're looking at, it's a life practice. It's like a full-time job to clear yourself out and be awesome. So, so one big thing that I notice is also very common between the clients who have continuous magical issues is they always have more than one cook in the kitchen. They have a psychic, they have an energy healer, they have a chiropractor, they have a shaman, they have a variety, they have like a team of go-to people to help them with their spiritual, magical, energetic, psychological problems. And I'm like, each of these people has a different perspective on life. They also have different energy. And they also have a sense of what correct is, their truth is, based on their view. So you basically, you have 10 doctors working on you, and they all think they're doing it what is right. Why on earth are you not directing the show? Or why? My advice is to only go to one person if you need to go outside of yourself. And obviously you don't trust these 10 doctors. So go to a doctor you trust. Or just live with it. So I gave her a harsh reprimand. I was like, you know what? I go, when are you going to choose to obey? When are you going to choose to actually do what I say? Or help yourself out? Get clear, get out of the story, get out of the bullshit. I'm like, I basically told her she could go die. And then she was all offended. She's like, oh. And I'm like, love and light is one thing, but did you forget wisdom and power? We fear the gods because they are powerful. We fear them because they are wise. And we love them to try to get in their good graces. The only beings that we respect, law of respect, are the ones that we view as powerful. And wisdom slash knowledge, and the use of knowledge is wisdom. The understanding, the existential experience of your knowledge is wisdom, and it also is power. When it's used rightly, we love them. When it's used wrongly, we hate them. But then, anyways, so I'm like, if you're being attacked, you don't realize the true danger you're in. Magical attacks can fuck up your life, even if it was just financially. How are you gonna pay your bills? You could be out on the street, so you're dead. It can affect your health. All that worrying and anxiety gonna create a disease for yourself. You're dead. All this neglect. I mean, they've all seem to have kids too. While you're worried about your psychic magical attack, you're neglecting your family. You're dead. Because do you think they're going to want to hang out with you years down the road when you didn't help them with their homework, when you weren't there for them because you're not even there for yourself? You're dead. So I'm like, and the reality is love and light, from my perspective, from my view, has nothing to do with the accumulation of power and magical things. Because, love, that's for you, and it feels really great to love people and feel good and do nice things. That's kind of built into humanity for humanity. But you've chosen to move out of the sphere of the human existence, to go play with aliens or to go play with other beings that are called angels, or so you're moving out of the rules. You're moving out of our jungle. You're moving into a whole new terrain with a whole different set of rules and etiquette. And so how do we know that love means anything in this other universe you're playing in? And so it's like you're in danger. The last thing you need to be thinking about is love. What you need to be thinking about is getting out of there. So, moving on. Oh, yes. Paid subscriptions. Everyone is subscribing to something. Some people subscribe to angels. Some people subscribe to entity channelers like Abraham Hicks and Bashar, and Ra, and whoever it is channeling some entity. Some people subscribe to ascended masters and things like that. Am I saying they don't exist? No, but you have to get a subscription first, and that is your invitation into that universe. So if you are subscribing to someone has the power to magically affect you, you had to somehow get that subscription. You had to somehow watch the show. So maybe you watch someone else get magically psychic attacked, or maybe you're getting a reading from someone and that reader suggests to you for the very first time someone has a power to influence you. Oh my God, grab this talisman and this rock and do this dance out in a hut on the full moon light. And you've bought the story. You have to buy the story in order for you then to open the door and go have that adventure. So at one point, I totally bought the story. And I went and I played magical battles with people who've also bought the story. And guess what? You're on the next plane right next to this one. It's basically to your left, and it's not a fun plane to be playing in. Because guess what? It's like walking around the corner and hanging out with some really trashy people. That's basically what's going on. So, if you want to play in the lower etheric plane, which I explained in detail to her, go right ahead. So, what's really interesting is pride is a big thing. We think we know what's best. Oh, I'm going to go to Onyx, who I believe in my mind has some magical abilities to move through the planes and has some psychic abilities. And now when he tells me something, I'm not going to believe him. That's pride. That is pride. Nuh-uh. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, come back 20 years later. My nieces and nephews. Uncle Onyx, we used to think you were crazy. Then we realized you were right about so many things. Oh, well, thank you. So, maybe get out of your teenage brain when your life is on the line. Oh, my life isn't on the line. It's just psychic attack, magical attack, right? So I notice people who are under magical attack get lots of attention. And it looks like this video is going to cut out soon. So we'll probably have to make another one to continue this talk. I kind of like this video.